Welcome, everybody, to the first official pop-up episode of the Speedway Review, powered by NASCAR Daily. I'm Chris Burns from the Speedway Review. On the other side of the screen, you can already see Mike McMahon, he of NASCAR Daily, and we are going to have fun tonight because tonight we're bringing you a very special interview with someone that I saw on TV. You guys, if you watch a lot of Speedways, you've probably seen him on TV, and we're just going to have a great time with Cody Dinsmore. We're going to give Mike just a minute as he's sharing the show out, and Mike's going to give you a little bit of background on how he acquired this interview, and then within a couple of minutes, Cody's going to join us, and he's got a heck of a story to tell. Hopefully you guys all enjoy it, and somehow I lost Mike, but he's going to come back hopefully in just a second. I'll fill you in. Right now, we're coming off Atlanta Motor Speedway weekend, where the Xfinity and the Cup guys were. You already saw that Kyle Busch won his, 102nd victory in the Xfinity Series. And I got to tell you, you're going to hear some things from me Wednesday night on the proper podcast where I'm actually going to praise Kyle Busch. So you may want to write down July 14th on your calendar. And as Mike comes back into the screen, yes, I am going to say something nice about Kyle Busch on Wednesday night based on an interview he did with PRN. And you know what, Mike, as you're here, before we bring in our guest, I couldn't agree with Kyle more, and I don't want to I don't understand. Again, I'm going to go over it on Wednesday, but I want you to give a little background on how you got this fantastic guest, and then we're going to bring him in, Mr. Cody Dinsmore.
Chris, can you see and hear me?
I can see you and I can hear you. Okay,
because that happened with the Bill Lester interview where they couldn't see me. So
it's better that people don't see you, but I like it.
I'm the magic man. Now you see me, now you don't.
Okay, here we go.
So I just found Cody, and we were talking, and I noticed him standing next to Chase Elliott, and I'm like, dude, you met Chase Elliott? That's awesome. And he's like, bro, I got stories for you. You're going to hear all about this tonight. And he was very gracious to come on. So I really don't want to waste too much of his time, but just a signal to you fans watching, Chris and I are going to let Cody talk the most. We're going to try not to interrupt him because we want to hear what he has to say too. So we're going to do a little signal. If you see us like waving the hat, it's a red flag that says, we want to chime in. So anyone watching tonight, we will be answering fan questions at 9 p.m. Normally we answer them during the podcast, but to get the maximum amount of Cody's time, we're going to wait till 9 o'clock, and then you guys can, shoot off questions, or we'll scroll back and make sure the best ones are read, okay? So without further ado, let us bring in Mr. Cody Dinsmore.
Yay!
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Much appreciated.
Oh, sure. Not a problem. I enjoy doing this kind of stuff.
Wow.
Cody, you said you do your own podcast too, right?
Yeah, I'm a part of it's called the Racing Spotlight. We do it on Tuesday nights. It's off the Spreaker network, and I've been doing podcasts and that kind of stuff for about 10 years, different podcasts and different programs and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it is something that I really enjoy doing, and it's just always enjoy just rambling on. I feel like I'm half decent at that, just rambling on about racing and all that kind of stuff, and but we have fun doing it.
That's kind of stuff we like. And I got to ask you real quick, you and Austin Dillon, same barber?
No, well, I stay in Dawsonville. I don't know where Austin Dillon has his, but no, I'm stay to Dawsonville.
Beautiful. You are awesome, Cody from Dawsonville. I like it. Well, Mike, you are ready to lead this interview. I'll chime in as we go along. You put this together. You lead the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Chris, for being here. And we give a tip of the hat to Corey, our fallen our fallen
Oh,
friend in arms.
you act like you got hit by a bus last night. He just unfortunately could not be with us tonight.
It's all right. So Cody, you and I are getting to know each other, and I appreciate your friendship, man, and your inspiration to me and all that. But maybe like take a few minutes and just give a little bio, of who is
Sure.
Cody Dinsmore for those, because I didn't know who you are, and there, I see you on Lost Speedways. I know that guy.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure out who I am really, but no, it's I'm just first and foremost I'm a racing fan from Dawsonville, Georgia, and I've just been lucky enough and fortunate enough and blessed enough to have a lot of really cool opportunities over the years, but I've been a racing fan since I was about 7 years old. I remember my first race I ever saw was back to the finale of 2003. And if you can remember back to that, that was the last Winston Cup race. That was when Bill had just won Rockingham and he was going into Homestead, and that was his last full-time race. He was thinking about stepping back to a part-time schedule. And, he was leading. He took the white flag, and I'll never forget. I was in a restaurant with my family, and my dad and my grandpa turned around to watch on the TV. And I remember my dad said, just like that, he said, the only way he can't win the race now is if he blows a tire. And sure enough, he said that, and right then and there, he blew a tire. So I still blame him for that, but that's kind of what got me going on racing, and especially the history part of it came later. But I've been involved with the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame since 2008. So that's the museum in Dawsonville. And of course, we have a lot to talk about and display about Chase and Bill, but more importantly, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just showing the 9. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, I was saying I got a question. How did you get involved to start with the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame? How long has it been open, and how did Cody Dinsmore become a part of this world?
Well, the Hall of Fame has been there. It opened in 2002, and it opened as it was basically like the NASCAR Hall of Fame before there was a NASCAR Hall of Fame. And I say that because it was a very state-of-the-art facility. There was, your motion simulators. There was your interactive things. There wasn't a whole lot of cars there. Just more or less high-dollar interactive exhibits. And it opened in 2002. I mean, I remember the ticket prices for then were very, very high. And long story short, they went bankrupt about 2 years later. And so the city of Dawsonville bought the building. The upstairs became City Hall, and they left the museum portion for kind of the rebuilt Georgia Racing Hall of Fame as a nonprofit. And I came on shortly after. I just, I was already, I was just a kid, but I was already pretty interested in the history aspect of it. And there were a few individuals that, just helped me kind of find my way into there. And when I started volunteering at the Hall of Fame back in 2008, I mean, it was just a blank room and a few cars in there. And now we have a world-class facility because we've been building it and building it and building it and building it. And I mean, it's just something that I'm very passionate about and I'm very proud of. So.
And I'll tell you this, I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame, the Football Hall of Fame, the NASCAR Hall of Fame. If what you're telling me is it's got to be true, you're saying it right here, why would you come on and lie to the people? I'm going to tell you, the next time I come down for a Falcon game, I'm certainly going to swing through Dawsonville and see your facility and hopefully meet you in person. I love to see the history of the sport, especially like a place like Darlington that has their own little Hall of Fame right at the track. But that can't measure up to what you're doing.
Well, for us, and Georgia has so much rich racing history, and let alone Dawsonville. We've had the Hall of Fame since 2002. We inducted 8 members from 2002 to 2009, and then from 2010 to current, it's 5. But there's so much history relating back to Georgia that a lot of people just don't even know. I'll tell you something about Dawsonville that is completely overlooked. When you think of Daytona, you think of Bill Elliott, you think Chase won the road course last year, but what amazes people, and I love to tell people, there is 7 individuals from our little town that have won a race at Daytona.
From Dawsonville.
And from Dawsonville. There are 4 drivers on the beach, 1 owner, and then both Elliots on the big track. And I challenge anywhere else in the country to claim that, but you've got Bernard Long, Lloyd C., Roy Hall, Gober Sosby, Raymond Parks was the owner. Now all those guys had something to do with Moonshine, and then Bill and Chase. 7 people from one little bitty town that has won at Daytona. Bill holds a speed record on Daytona on the big track, which will never be broken because of restrictor plates. Gober Sosby holds the speed record on the beach course in the modified division. Of course, that'll never be broken because they don't race there anymore. So we've got 2 speed records there as well. And to go back and to look at all the how many wins at Daytona just from Dawsonville, I think it would be very, very overwhelming for sure. Because Raymond Parks, who is from Dawsonville, and I love to tell people about Raymond Parks, but he is who I call the godfather of stock car racing. He was the car owner for the first NASCAR winner, first 2 NASCAR championships. He was a big, big integral part of keeping NASCAR afloat in the first couple of seasons. Because he was a businessman from Atlanta. He's born in Dawsonville, but he made his living in Atlanta. Bill France drove for him before the war, and Bill France went back to him when he wanted to start NASCAR. And, Raymond very quietly provided a lot of purse money and guaranteed purse money and pace cars and just financial assistance that was never really talked about. I mean, I firmly believe if it wasn't for him, you might have had a NASCAR, but I don't know if it would have lasted. And so, Raymond, he was the Rick Hendrick of the 1940s. He had the best looking cars, the most successful cars, the most well-built cars. And, I think all combined throughout the 40s, his cars won something like 11 races on the beach or something like that. So, he had, Red Byron, who was the first ever NASCAR champion. Byron won the first ever NASCAR race at Daytona, 1948. He had the Flocks racing for him. He had his cousins, Roy Hall and Lloyd C. It's just so much history can go back to Dawsonville. And that's what I love to do. I write for the local paper, and I have a column relating Dawsonville racing history to current. And there's so many times where I can compare something that Chase done this week and bring it back 80 years and bring them together.
That's cool.
So, it may not be a direct correlation or a direct comparison, but you got to look at the fact that 80 years ago, there were still people from Dawsonville making headlines and winning these races, just like Chase is doing right now. So that's what's neat to me.
Fantastic.
To keep on the subject of the beach, racing on the beach, I lived in Daytona for 3 years.
Okay.
I've been to the North Turn restaurant. I'm sure you've been there, Cody.
I've never actually been there. I was supposed to go down this February for the parade. A good friend of mine is Gober Sosby's son, David, and we were going to take. From the museum, we've got his Gober's restored 39 Ford beach racer, beach winner car. He won 49, 50, 51. And I'll tell you real quick a brief story about that if you want. But so this was the modified division, which I guess we could say was like the Xfinity series of today. It was the support race for the strictly stock. Anyway, back then there might have been 70 cars start at one of those modified races on the beach. It was 2 miles on the beach and then 2 miles on Highway A1A. And in 49 in particular, Gober was making a pit stop. And you have to remember that back then there was no First off, there definitely was no pit lane speeds, but there was no dedicated pit lane. you just kind of pulled off the side of the track where your truck was or your car. Your car got serviced, and then you just pulled back on the racetrack. There was no guardrails or anything like that. And so Gober came in. It was late in the going. He was going to get a refuel, and nobody had paid pit crews pretty much. Raymond Parks is kind of the exception because he was just in a league of his own. But for the common man, you didn't have any pit crews. You had a couple of volunteers. And so, long story short, the gas tank for the car was behind the driver's seat. So they went to fill it up. It was a full 5-gallon jug, but there was nothing coming out. So Gober said, I don't have time to waste. He dumped the clutch, went back around 4 miles in length of that track. So when he came back around, he was sputtering. Well, Jack Smith, who was also a Georgia driver in our Hall of Fame, Jack Smith was a very popular Cup driver from the 50s and 60s. He was a friend of Gober's, and he wrecked out early. He saw what was going on. He grabbed the gas can. He was waiting for Gober. As he barely crawled by, he jumped on the running board, opened the door, and climbed inside the car. And what had happened was that somebody had stuffed gas rags down the gas can to try and sabotage, to where it was a full can, but when you turn it up, nothing will come out. So Jack Smith sat on the floorboard, and he pulled all these rags out. And anyway, he filled up the car going down the track. And, let's say there was 10 laps to go in that race, or 5 laps, or whatever it was. And Gober said, just stay in the car. We're almost done anyway. So anyway, because he didn't actually make a pit stop, he was the leader, and he won the race. And so he went to collect his winnings, and Bill France said something like, oh, you were disqualified. You didn't win that race. And Gober said, what are you talking about? I didn't win that race. I was the first to get the flag. And Bill France pulled out his rule book, and he said, Gober pulled out his rule book, and he said, there's nothing in here that says, I can't have a passenger. And Bill France grabbed it from him, and he grabbed a pen and wrote in there himself. He said, it's in there now. So
that answers everyone, the non-fans that are like, why don't they have anyone in the car with them?
Yeah, exactly.
I've always said, just to be said, I've always said that they should drive with their wives. Because if you've ever driven more than 100 miles with a woman in the car, if I don't get Taco Bell in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to scratch a dashboard. You will get to the finish line faster than lightning. I swear to God, that would happen. Imagine how many more championships, Bill Elliot, Rusty Wallace, Kevin Harvick. Could you imagine Delana screaming, I need burgers right now? He'd have 5 championships by now. It'd be all over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't think you're representing Delana accurately. Delana would be like, the jockeys that ride horses and whip them.
Oh, no, without a doubt. Would he get to the finish line quicker? Would you disagree?
She'd be verbally whipping him to pass. Go up there and pass Newman. Do not get passed by Newman.
Yeah, that's a challenge in itself.
Right? Amazing.
Well, now here's something else. You're talking about passengers. Gober had a passenger, was disqualified. He came back in 50. He didn't want to stop for gas. They put 3 gas tanks in his car. He was disqualified again, but he was able to keep the victory. And then in 51, he won all legal like. But you're talking about passengers. Have you ever heard of Jocko Flacco?
The name sounds familiar.
All right. Well, let's learn some more. So here's another Dawsonville guy. Ted Chester was the car owner for, you've heard of Tim Flock.
Of course.
Okay. Tim Flock is a 2-time Cup champion. He won the Grand National title in 52, 55. 52, he drove a Hudson Hornet for Ted Chester of Dawsonville. 55, he drove the Chrysler 300 for Carl Kiekhaefer. In 53, Ted Chester, the car owner, he got the idea, let's put a monkey in the car. And he was in a pet shop in Atlanta. He saw I think they're called a Reese or a Roos monkey or something like that.
Monkey.
Something like that, Yes. And this monkey was for sale, and the monkey's name was Jocko. Well, his driver was Tim Flock, and he got that light bulb and said Jocko Flocko.
Oh my Lord.
And so he had a seamstress sew up a tiny little uniform that matched Tim's uniform, had 91 on the back of it. He had the chief mechanic fabricate a small seat in the floorboard. Yeah.
I remember this story from my trip to the Hall of Fame in 2015, and it's just this little fire suit that is, oh my Lord. And I'm like, I thought it was a goof.
No, that
I
actually
thought
happened.
it was a complete goof.
That actually happened. And Jocko was in the car for 8 races. They even went as far as painting his name over the passenger side of the Hudson, like he was a legitimate co-pilot. And they didn't really tell people about it at first. And so you can imagine that first race, wherever it was in 53, when he's, going through the field, and then all of a sudden, a driver looks over and there's a monkey staring at him.
And for you guys out there who don't know what a rhesus monkey is, if you've seen The Hangover, the little monkey with the denim vest with the Rolling Stones on the back that was the drug runner, that's what a rhesus monkey is.
Could have been a long lost relative of Jocko.
Oh my Lord. It could have been Harambe, except they killed him. God bless him.
But yeah, it was a neat thing. Jocko was there for one win. Tim Flock would always say later in years that he had to fire him because he couldn't teach him to sign autographs. But the real reason, it's pretty wild. So back in those days, you're on dirt tracks all the time. Your right front tire is going to wear out first. And so they had a little trap door that was cut into the firewall with a rope or a string or something like that, to where the driver could pull open this trap door and just look at the tire in the firewall. Okay. Well, if you can kind of see where I'm going with this, Jocko got out of his seat, and he had seen Tim open that door plenty of times with that rope. And so he's going down the track, and Jocko just crawling around the floorboard, and he opens up that door, and a rocket flew up and hit him, right here on the head. And he just went crazy. I mean, he started scratching Tim and clawing him and everything. He was in second, battling for the lead. I think he was closing in on his brother Fonny, and he had to come in, drop the monkey off to the pit crew, and he finished third. But the difference in payday from second to third was like $400. And it just, in 1953, that was a pretty big loss.
That's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it was. But
so he had to drop off the monkey because he was going ape.
Yeah.
Oh, that's bad.
He's going bananas. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I like what Cody had to say better, but I like where you went with that, Mike. That was good.
It just popped in my head. I had to throw a dad joke in there, but
wow.
Cody,
well, I know we didn't mean to start talking about monkeys and all that kind of stuff. But,
somehow we worked it in there.
It's a part of racing history, fellas.
It's racing history, and it ties back to Dawsonville, which, we claim a lot that Dawsonville is the birthplace of stock car racing. That is kind of there's definitely there's different areas that can also claim that. I mean, they started racing at Daytona Beach in 1936. First race in Georgia we know of was 38, and they've done some West Coast stuff in the early 30s. But regardless, what we know as Southern stock car racing definitely had some, a lot of heritage revolving around Dawsonville and the Carolinas. But again, Dawsonville has so much history, and it's just so neat that we still can tie it right back to something that's happening every week. And it's just that's something cool for sure.
So you got the roots. You got the roots in NASCAR. But I've been to that Streamline Hotel, man, in Daytona Beach, and just driving by it, living there, I get goosebumps every time I go by it. But it's also cool to me that I've been somewhere that you haven't. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't get out too much. Truth be told, I normally stick to Dawsonville, and I'm just busy, But One of these days, I'll definitely get down there for sure. Like I said, we were supposed to take the car down this year for the parade and just never made it.
If you ever make it to Yankee Stadium for a Yankees Braves game, let me know. I will buy you a beer. Put your hands down.
Ooh, don't go there. You're from the South. Don't congregate with Yankees.
I didn't root against the Braves. I said you come up for a Braves game, I'll buy you a beer. It's that simple.
Well, you asked me something about sports earlier, and I mean, honestly, if you are a sports fan in the South, Chase Elliott is your saving grace, and that's another thing. Because I mean, I don't keep up with stick and ball sports, but the Braves do half decent throughout the year. Always falter at the end. Falcons and Bulldogs and all that. I mean, it's been years, decades since championships have been coming into Atlanta. So I mean, Chase literally is Georgia's sports fan saving grace with that hat right there.
That's right, absolutely. And I came up with a little I don't know what they call it when each letter means something. Is that somebody help me with the English here?
An acronym.
Thank you. An acronym for Falcons. It stands for Fans Always Left Counting on Next Season. And that's all we do. And I want to make that a shirt, and I want to sell it. I want to make millions, and I still want to do that. But you're right. Between the 95 World Series, and I'm not trying to open a wound because, as you can see, my wound is open every single day. Chase Elliott really is the saving grace. The Hawks aren't that good. The Falcons, well, we suck every year. The Braves, like you said, up and down. But,
yeah,
even the college teams, the Bulldogs, Georgia Tech, they're not lighting the world on fire. Chase Elliott has brought the sports eyes back to Georgia, and that's got to be great. A guy like you from Dawsonville, anybody who lives in Georgia who is sick of watching their teams not be anything in the playoffs, Chase Elliott, not only last year winning the championship, the year before being a contender, and now this year, it leads to one of my questions: is Elliott's success? And I know we're going off topic, but I have to ask this because you brought it up. Is Elliott's success and Hendrick Motorsports overall, their success, is that a surprise or was that expected by you?
I don't think it's a surprise for Hendrick because if you look, in my opinion, you look at the last 5 years and there's not been really one outlier, one dominant team for that consistent 5 to 7 years. I remember back, 2015, I would just say it was like the year was half Penske and half Gibbs. 2016, say this team was doing pretty good. I mean, you remember back there was a couple of years where Stuart Haas won everything. Then there was a couple of years where it was just Joe Gibbs racing. They won like 3/4 of the races that year. And Hendrick has been there. Hendrick has known what that's like to have every car successful. It's been a while, but they know what it's like. And I think I think every team just takes their turn. I don't think that Joe Gibbs went into this season knowing that they were going to just be terrible. But, I think that
I disagree on that. I disagree on that because my theory is that they're investing into the next gen car and they're kind of not that prioritizing, and especially based off their performance last year, they're like, we can kind of.
But before Cody answers, I got to say that's a little bit sideways because you have Truex, who's got a handful of wins. Kyle Busch has picked up a win this year. So they have 4 wins, but we're not talking about 4 by Larson. Bowman's got some. Byron's got one. Chase Elliott obviously has a win. So right now, for the last couple of years, like Cody mentioned, Hendrick Motorsports hasn't been, as dominant as they were from, say, 1995 through till, and I got to say, Jimmy Johnson's last championship. So there was a couple of years where people were ready to hit that panic button and say, has the sport passed Hendrick by? We're finding out last year with Bowman and Byron, Chase Elliott has, Chase Elliott's just been clamoring all the wins up. He wins a championship. Now this year, nobody has more wins than HMS. I guess for me, it wasn't so much a surprise, but it was like watching the snake in the weeds waiting to attack its prey, and that's what HMS is doing now.
And I think I think they've just figured something out. I think that they were in a slump for a little bit. And I mean, I said for a long time, it was when the Camaro body came out, when we went from the Chevy SS to the Camaro body. Honestly, I think it was coincidence, because there's no way that the body made that big of a difference. I mean, I know on one hand it does, but if you compare that old Chevy SS with like an 18 and up Camaro body in NASCAR, there's a big difference. And honestly, I went to get Chase's first win car for the museum. I went up to Hendrick's warehouse to pick it up, and I'd never seen one of those cars up close before, one of those new current Cup cars. I'd never seen one of those up close before, and you can't tell from TV the body lines on it, but when you're standing next to it, I mean, it's not flat. Clint Boyer said it very well on Dale Jr. show not a couple weeks ago. He said, the right side is like a billboard, the left side is like a dually truck.
Exactly.
And that's literally, the road course car is a little bit different, but I mean, there's some good body lines on that car that are, it's got some curves, it's got the body lines, it's got the fender arches. I was pretty impressed with it. So that led me in to believe that this next gen car is going to be really, really good as far as just the looks department, making it look like something that should be on the road, comparing it with their street counterpart. I don't really have a prediction for next year, honestly, because I think that it's going to be such a crapshoot for the first half of the year. I think it's going to be just not really who's lucky, but just whoever can just find a little something right out of the box.
It's going to come down to who figures out the car first.
Yeah. And for right now, I mean, you think that the difference between 2021 and 2018, there's nothing there, but obviously there is if Hendrick is just now playing catch up, honestly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it also took the Chevy teams deciding we're tired of Toyota and Ford winning everything. Yeah. And they've all started working together. But I wanted to say, and I missed my window here, but going back to, I was thinking about it. When was the last time all four Hendrick drivers were firing off? And I would say it was Mark Martin, Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, and Jimmy Johnson. Now, Casey Kane had a little success here and there, but you couldn't say all four Hendrick drivers were firing off like this since 2009 with Mark freaking Martin, man. That was the best year.
I just looked recently about when was the last time all four cars had won a race, and it was 2014, which wasn't a bad year. 2014, I think Casey Kane might have won like one or two races, but that was the year that Junior was, at his peak. Johnson
obviously
was always good. Jeff Gordon was still kind of in his prime,
hit and miss. Then he was towards the end of his career in 14. He was hit and miss. I know, because I'm a huge Jeff Gordon fan primarily, so it was really painful for me to see Johnson firing off and Gordon's just like 12th or 14th. I'm like, ugh.
I never heard of him. Who's this Gordon man we speak of?
He's not the best broadcaster of all time, but
I disagree. That man is the best analyst in NASCAR, and Fox is going to lose a lot losing Jeff Gordon in the upcoming season. That man puts you in the car. You sit on your couch, and he says, "You see how he wiggled right there? So what's happening is the tire did this, and the wheel did this, and his helmet did." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's an accurate description." Then I'll reach out to my friends who race here. I'm like, "Hey, has this ever happened to you?" And they will tell the same exact story. Yeah, when you do this and a thing does this and you do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, everything's the same. Jeff Gordon is the best analyst in NASCAR, bar none. And Fox's loss is HMS's gain, to be clear.
Yes. When Darrell Waltrip left, when he retired, my heart shattered. And Gordon just went full-blown, like 100 miles an hour every minute, even when nothing was happening, and it was really painful to listen to.
I'm gonna give you a little tip that Cody already knows. Doing podcasting for 10 years, I did it for 6, and even beyond that with this show. That's his job, is to talk to you. Yes, dead air is a killer. And Cody will tell you this, dead air is a killer. So if Jeff Gordon is look, I was not a Jeff Gordon fan. There are people in this town that I live in and in this world that will tell you, I used to wish bad things on Jeff Gordon. The minute he got in that booth and I heard him speak for the first time, talking about certain things about the car, all gone. Jeff Gordon could walk in, slap me, slap my daughter, take the beer out of my fridge, empty my wallet, and I'd go, God damn, he's a nice guy.
Swear, John.
All right, Wednesday, remind me, I owe a quarter.
But we can all here agree that Clint Boyer, to bounce Jeff and put him in it, like where he had to sit and listen to somebody else and then interact with someone else, was a million times better than him just being unsensitive.
I'm a big Boyer fan anyway. And I've said for years, I think Clint Boyer is the closest thing we've got to a modern day Buddy Baker.
Oh, yes.
And, back in I guess you'd call it the glory days of NASCAR, 70s, 80s, 90s, NASCAR was filled with characters. And that is extreme. That is so much what we're missing right now. We're missing characters. We're missing personalities. I think that's been discussed a lot. And I don't know if they're really going to make a comeback because all these newer kids that are coming in, they're trained from such an early age to say everything properly, to be very clean cut, polished, and that's fine. I mean, that's what they're paid to do. But at the same time, like, that's what people miss. They miss the personalities. Clint Boyer is a personality. And I think that he's just fun. He's a good storyteller. He's relatable. And that's the thing. That's why Chase is so popular. I mean, Chase just had the perfect storm. I mean, he already had a lot of his dad's fans. Mm-hmm. He gained a lot of Jeff Gordon fans. He gained a lot of Dale Jr. fans. Some Casey Kane fans, but he earned a lot himself. And I think part of that was that he is just about the last closest thing that anybody could grab to that old era of NASCAR, because he's from the South. His dad was a NASCAR legend. And you just can't find that anymore. And so I think that what NASCAR is missing is personalities. I was a big Tony Stewart fan. Tony Stewart was a personality, and I think that's what we're missing, because there's just, you don't have them. I mean, but relatability to Clint Boyer. I think that the common man can relate to blue collar Clint Boyer, who, plays with cars, drinks beer at night, listens to country music or whatever. And we don't have that anymore in today's NASCAR. I never was around for the 80s era, but I like to think that I would have been a huge Harry Gant fan, because I mean, Harry was relatable. Harry Gant was a guy that was old school. He would go in on Sunday. He would go work with cows or be on a roof on Monday. That's why Earnhardt was popular, because he'd win on Sunday and he'd be feeding chickens on Monday. Mm-hmm. People could relate to Bill Elliott because of, obviously from the South, and, had that family atmosphere, done things himself. There were just so many relatable people back then that we don't have right now. Exactly. Unfortunately. And I don't know if you can ever get them back.
And one of the things, and I don't know if I'm going to get blackballed by Cody once I get out of Facebook jail, I'd love to add you as a friend and talk racing with you every now and again. I was a fan of Rusty Wallace because this story always was, Rusty goes out there, runs on Sunday, but on Monday, he's in the shop, hungover or not from a victory, and he's underneath that car wrenching. And he's helping with the tire balance, and he's helping with the chassis, and he's helping. The only thing he didn't do was engines. But he would get under there with, whether you're Pit Crew Jones or Top Fabricator, I like this. Can we move this? Can I wrench this? And he was, like you said, a relatable character. He
had a good understanding of his car.
Exactly. And I saw a little bit of myself in Rusty Wallace. Now, behind me, you can see my two friends, Cardboard Kevin 1 and Cardboard Kevin 2. Mike asked the question, how did you become a Harvick fan? He took over for Earnhardt at the worst possible time, 2 years early, and it was That kid's got balls to get in that car.
Yeah.
So soon after we just lost the second biggest icon in racing on a nationwide scale. I'm not downplaying Dawsonville or Charlotte or anywhere else. You're talking about in some cases a worldwide scale. The kid's got balls. That's my next guy. And but he has a relatable personality. I've met him a half a dozen times. Really nice every time I meet him. I've met a lot of the current drivers. They're really cool. I like what you're saying about personalities. Tony had one. Harvick has one. Unfortunately, Kyle Busch has one. And but again, as much as I sit here on this show and pick on Kyle Busch, and this is my question for you, is that black hat wearing Darrell Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt, is he the next gen of racing villain?
I would say so. I mean, I'm not a Kyle Busch fan. I think he's one heck of a race car driver.
Absolutely.
But, just like you said with Darrell, I mean, I think Darrell gained so many more fans as a broadcaster than he did as a driver.
Absolutely.
Back in the 80s, he was not well liked by his peers, and he was not well liked by fans. I mean, he had fans. It's not like people were throwing beer cans at him, but I think that he really gained respect, and just I don't know what you're trying to say, but he gained respect and acceptance when he joined the broadcast booth. It's kind of how I felt with Jeff Gordon, and kind of like you said, when I was a kid, I hated Jeff Gordon, and I hate him for one reason, because my neighbor was a huge Jeff Gordon fan. Their address was 1124. Ours happened to be 1120, and I just happened to be a Tony Stewart fan. But just because they love Jeff Gordon, I just had to hate him. It was just, I had to hate him. I didn't have a reason except for that. Now later on in his career, when I matured and he was kind of at the twilight, he did. And kind of when he was at the twilight of his career, I learned to respect him. I learned to appreciate what he did. I kind of fought myself with that last year with Jimmy Johnson, because it was just all of a sudden, obviously with 2020 not having a good farewell tour, all of a sudden it was Jimmy's last race and he's gone. Yep. And I thought, all this time I never appreciated Jimmy Johnson for what he did. And Jimmy was a guy. I think if you knew him, he has a personality, but from the outside looking in, he's very just bland, vanilla. I never was a Jimmy Johnson fan because it was just the thing that he won all the time, and he wasn't my guy. My God, he won every race. I don't like Jimmy Johnson, but once I really just sat back and looked at what he was able to do, now I respect him. Now I hate that I did not pull for him all those years prior, and how I didn't appreciate what he was giving to the sport.
You didn't miss much, man. You didn't miss much.
But before Mike gives you the next question, I'm gonna take that to another step. I am a huge New York Yankees fan, and
here we go with the Yankees again. Come on, man.
Why don't you hush while I ask this question?
My podcast.
And somebody. Two of my best friends in this entire world are Jeff Gordon fans. So shout out to Chad and Terry. And one of them said to me, "You know why you hate Jeff Gordon?" And I said, "Yeah." And I rattled off the reasons. They, no. You hate Jeff Gordon for the same reason I hate the Yankees, because he wins all the time. Yeah. Ding! And I'm like, okay. Yeah. The playing field has now leveled. I'm going to watch him with a different set of eyes. And I think I think Corey brought it up a couple weeks ago on the show. My worldview of Jeff Gordon changed when the gold digger left and he married Ingrid and he became a father. And he learned that there's more in this world, and he does have a personality. He was the golly gee wow, got the buggy whip mustache and drinking milk and all that. He toasted his first Cup championship with a glass of milk to throw it in Dale Earnhardt's face. Yep. And that was good on him. He showed his personality.
I think Kyle Busch is a similar thing to where maturity was, I wouldn't say achieved, but it was gained when he had children or when he had Brexton.
I've yet
Yeah,
to see it.
2015 was a huge season, and when I became a Kyle Busch fan, he became a father, I became a father, and he hurt himself at Daytona,
Mhm.
and he went through surgeries, same as
Right.
me. I had 2 ankle reconstruction surgeries. So, but Cody, I think it's funny that you were a Tony Stewart fan. I was a Gordon fan. I hated Tony Stewart and Dale Jr. Those were my like burning. When Tony Stewart won and Gordon lost, I was like hurt. I to this day I do not set foot in Home Depot, and I do not shop
Oh, man.
at Home Depot ever. I
Oh,
will not
man.
give them my business, nor will I give any to DeWalt or Lowe's. You're banned for life.
Oh my
But
God.
but when Tony Stewart left Toyota and Joe Gibbs and formed Stewart Haas Racing with Hendrick, with a Chevrolet, boy, I was on that 14 train faster than you could say, lickety split. And same thing with Dale Jr. coming to HMS,
Mhm.
right on that train. Man,
You
so
better have some
awesome.
questions, kid.
We were talking about Chase Elliott's championship.
Mhm.
And I want to ask you, Cody, was first of all, were you able to go to Phoenix and be there with Chase? Or if not, then what was either your reaction to it and being like if you were there and you're in Dawsonville, if you were
Uh-huh.
there for that street celebration?
Oh God, yeah, yeah. That was
Whoa.
that was something magical. I mean, it really was. And I tell people all the time that, if Chase was to win it this year, or if he was to win, the next 3 championships in a row, or whatever, um,
We're good.
there's going to be a lot of people in Dawsonville, probably twice the amount of people or 3 times or whatever, but it won't match the first one. And I think it was because we didn't expect it. I don't think anybody expected it,
Nobody did. No.
But yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good showing in Dawsonville. So recall back, he won Martinsville, and that was, to me, when I watched that, I didn't think about the championship. I thought that was redemption from when Hamlin put him in the fence 3 years prior, and that was, and then all of a sudden you think, oh wow, he's in the championship 4. That's pretty neat. He came to the Hall of Fame that Thursday before, and he was just kind of holed up in the back. We got a conference room that he was doing some media day stuff. He had the banner behind him to, championship week, going to Phoenix, whatever. And he had on his suit, and he was just doing all the Zoom calls for, media, whatever, since there wasn't media week.
Mhm.
And that's when we kind of thought, well, he's got a legitimate shot to win the championship. And the idea was kind of tossed around among a few people of Dawsonville. I'm like, what are we going to do? If he wins the race, what are we going to do? And someone said, well, when Bill won his, I don't know if it was his first race or when it was he won the championship. I know they threw a parade when he won the million in Dawsonville.
Mhm.
Of course, back then in the 80s, Dawsonville was, a few hundred people, probably a few thousand people. We're still small, but we're not that small. But anyway, so we kind of discussed a little bit about, like myself, members of the Hall of Fame board, maybe some people from the Chamber of Commerce, this person from the city, whatever, right? And we decide that, maybe we'll do something, but only if he wins. We're not going to jinx him. We're just not going to talk about it.
Right.
So we had a showing at the Hall of Fame. We had like a 30-foot projection screen, surround sound. We probably had 100 and some odd people there in our back conference room. And I'll tell you what, when it was like 3 laps to go, you couldn't hear in that room. It was like I was at Phoenix. Now at the pool room, the pool room was just as packed, and we can talk about that in a second. But
yeah, this is the juicy stuff.
I mean, my God, it was, NBC, they were prepared. They had, just in case, that they had NBC, like a live feed going back to the pool room. The NASCAR sent a photographer down just to be there, just in case he won. And see, that's the thing too that was pretty interesting, is that NASCAR was preparing. They didn't send anybody to Rochester Hills, Michigan for Keselowski. They didn't send anybody to Chesapeake, Virginia for Denny Hamlin. They didn't send a crew to, where's Logano from? Connecticut.
Middletown. I work in Middletown.
Middletown.
And, dude, there's not even a sign that says he's from there. I don't want to get into it, but good call by you.
I claim him as a Georgia guy half the time because Logano did live in Georgia to race Legends cars for a brief time. But
that is correct.
But anyway, it was just the perfect storm. And honest to God, like, I don't think anybody expected him to actually pull it off. Everybody was freaking out that, he's going to get sent to the back. And I thought, that's fine. 20, 30 laps in, he was already in the top 15 or whatever it was. And I said, he's fine. And, so I don't know if you guys are aware, but for those listening, you've heard of the Dawsonville pool room, maybe. The infamous Dawsonville pool room is a quarter mile from the Hall of Fame, downtown Dawsonville. They started the tradition of, now when you're in North Georgia, we call it a siren. It's a siren, but in North Georgia we call it a siren. And there's an old State Patrol siren on top of the building. The tradition started when Bill Elliot won his first race. The owner of the pool room, Gordon Perkle, he needed something to celebrate, and so they found that old siren and they sounded off. And it was just kind of holding it and just touching it to the car battery, just letting it wail. And when 85 came around, they had to mount it on top of the building. And so anyway, the tradition carries on. When Chase wins a race, that siren goes on. That is an experience too that I hope, even if you're not a Chase Elliott fan, if you are just a racing fan and you happen to be in Dawsonville, if Chase wins, that is something to see. A lot of out-of-town people that maybe are not racing fans, they think it's like a tornado siren or something like that. I mean, you can hear it from half mile away. It is ear-piercingly loud. It is normally when he wins, it goes on for about 15 minutes, probably. Constant. Wow. They rigged it several decades ago. You think about like an old Andy Griffith style siren, where it winds up and it winds down, winds up, winds down. This one is rigged to where it stays at the highest pitch at all times. So it is so loud. So back to the championship. When he won the race, they let that siren go for an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh my Lord.
And we were wondering if it was just going to burn up the motor. Turns out it was really starting to warm up the battery that it was hooked. It's hooked to a car battery, and you have to leave the car running because it draws so much power. But let me tell you something. Not everybody in North Georgia is a NASCAR fan, and that's fine. Just like I'm not a baseball or a football fan. But that day, everybody was a Chase Elliott fan. And that's just what we were talking about earlier when it goes back to Georgia sports have choked for decades. And, I know plenty of people that really don't watch NASCAR religiously. They know who Chase is. They know the Daytona 500 is coming on. They know who Dale Jr. is, whatever. But that was a day that everybody was a Chase Elliott fan. So there was, like you said, a street party. I mean, there was probably 300 people out there just cheering, waving
despite
flags.
Despite COVID.
Right. And, there was cars driving by just honking horns. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. I mean, there were people revving their engines, doing burnouts. Cops didn't care because they were there celebrating with us. I mean, it was just the neatest freaking thing possible.
That sounds awesome.
Now, that was Sunday night.
Uh-oh.
Monday, Sunday night, there was a group of probably like 7 of us all standing in a circle in front of the pool room. I mean, yelling to each other because you couldn't hear. And we kind of planned the parade. I mean, just Sunday night. I posted about it on the Hall of Fame social like 10 o'clock that night. And that's mind-blowing. There was about 10,000 people that showed up Monday afternoon when he drove the car through town and ended up at the Hall of Fame. Now that was put together, I mean, just like that. It was just something that, again, like, how in the world did that happen? To all the coordination, I mean, between Sunday night and Monday midday, pretty much, we got the Napa show car in town. Ernie had to do some work to it, his uncle, because that show car, you think about it, had been sitting all of 2020. So, Ernie Elliot had to get in there and do some tinkering on it, make sure it would run good. It's about 5 miles from the shop to town. And, we got the trucks from the local Chevy dealer to haul the pit crew. The pit crew had never been to Dawsonville before.
Wow.
Hendrick, he flew every one of the pit crew members to it. So the Elliots have a airstrip behind their shop, for their private planes and whatever. And that's why it's easy for them to fly to Charlotte and still live in Dawsonville, because it's a 40-minute flight. Well, the Hendrick jet was too big for this airstrip, so he had to fly to 30 miles away. They were late. We were late starting the celebration because we were waiting on the pit crew. And here's a funny story for you. I remember, there was literally like probably 5,000 people at the museum just waiting. Now, they weren't going to start this procession until the pit crew got there to get the trucks and wave and all that kind of stuff. And Chase was going to lead them in the race car. And so we had some contacts in fact, some of the pit crew wives had drove down to Dawsonville, and they were telling us, like, hey, they just got on a kind of like a tour bus or a what do you call, like a charter bus,
party bus,
kind of, yeah. And they just got on this charter bus, and they had a police escort from the next town over to Dawsonville. And apparently, like, whoever pit crew member was texting his wife that was letting us know, said that charter bus was doing like 75 on a 2-lane road. But man, it was that was something that, it still gives me goosebumps to think about that day. Because, winning the championship was cool, but to be a part of the celebration the day after in his hometown is something I'll never forget. And, so like I said, people, the roads were just shut down when they weren't supposed to. It's not like we got, we didn't get any special permits or anything. It just kind of happened. Everybody was just so happy. And like I said, they didn't have to be a NASCAR fan to appreciate it. When he done, you might have seen he done burnouts in front of the courthouse. Mm-hmm. That was just like, can't believe that. And unfortunately, as soon as he done that, like, God, the crowd just swarmed his car, and they were like trying to reach into his car and shake his hand, and it was just mad. So he got down to the museum. In front of the museum, we've got it's like a replica of Winter Circle. And so we had a stage there. The pit crew was there. He pulled the car in, waved to all the people, and we had a couple of presentations for him. And we gave him, like, the couple city officials give him a key to the city hall, or the city of Dawsonville. There was a trophy that Dawson County give Bill when he won his first race for putting, our town back on the map. We presented that to Chase at the time. Let's see, I went up on stage and I presented him with a bottle of the bonded bourbon. I work at the, where are we at? Dawsonville Moonshine Distillery, which is the same facility as the museum. So we had some bonded bourbon. It was a special. We had just released it. I picked out, number 9 was already gone, so I pulled bottle number 94, presented that to him. I think there was a couple other things, and then
94, Bill Elliott's number, former number.
Chase's early number too.
Oh.
He drove 94 in the truck series for his first year. Done a couple of K&N West races with 94, but he's always been that.
Sorry, but you started in 2003. I started in 97. So as a kid, that McDonald's car was pretty important.
Yeah,
we noticed that one.
I wish he could have had some more luck with McDonald's. It was just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, that that Chase Elliott celebration, that was just something that I mean, I'll just never forget as long as I live to to go share a beer with the guy that won the championship not even 24 hours before. I mean, I don't know when's the next time I'm going to get to do that,
Possibly at the end of this year, but
Yeah.
I had
Hopefully
a list.
so.
I had a list of questions about the celebration, and without even asking one, you've answered them all.
Good.
I want to make mention of this, and then I have to duck away for about 90 seconds. I want to make mention that listening to your story about how the city of Dawsonville embraced this championship, and we're in an era now where people, it seems like they just don't care. You can have a hometown boy do good, and it's never acknowledged. I say that because you mentioned Joey Logano, and at the time I was working full-time in Middletown, Connecticut. Now I move around the state with my job, and I remember Joey winning that championship, and my boss at the time knew Tom and his wife and Joey growing up. And how could I forget Danielle, who's doing so great with her ice skating thing that she does in North Carolina. She works with a lot of the great NHL players, but the city of Middletown could not have cared less. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's Connecticut versus, Georgia. Georgia, it's one of the reasons I embrace, places like Florida, Georgia, Virginia, the Carolinas. If you have a hometown boy that does something really, really good, it's as if the whole town, puts the big hug on and thank you so much. And everybody's got a Chase Elliott story. And before I duck out, I got to ask you, how did you meet Chase? And I guess my second question before I duck out real quick, and then we'll come back. I'm going to ask Mike to share this out again for the Q&A portion, because we just reached 9 o'clock. If you're watching us live, to ask Cody a bunch of questions. How did you meet Chase? And did you think when you met this young man, he was going to be the heavyweight champion of the racing world?
Well, that I sure did. And trying to think, first time I met Chase was probably like 2008. Probably. And honestly, it was the first time I met Bill. There was I'd wanted, my favorite driver as a young kid was Tony Stewart, but I really respected Bill Elliott because he was a local guy, and I just never had the right opportunity to meet him. And it would always be, the owner of the pool room would say, you just missed Bill. He was just up there. Or, well, Bill was here yesterday and you're here today or something like that. I always wanted to meet Bill Elliott. And, at the time I'd met a lot of other people, Petty, Pearson, Allison, Stewart, all these other legends of the sport. And I was completely fine. I met Bill Elliott for the first time and I couldn't say a couple of words. I think because I'd wanted to meet him for so long. And Chase was right there. The more I got to see Bill around Dawsonville, around the Hall of Fame, the more I got to see Chase. I remember we're at the pool room probably like 2009 or something like that. Back when Bill was still driving for the Wood Brothers, might have been 2008, whatever it was. Bill was doing an episode of The Wind Tunnel back, that glorious show that Dave Despain put out on the Speed Channel.
Love Dave Despain.
Bill was a guest, and they were filming it at the pool room, and me and Chase kind of just took up residence out the side, just watching this thing go down. I remember one time early on, he might have just started driving late models. Somehow I ended up in a group where we went bowling, and I remember because we went to I don't know if honestly we went to a bowling alley. We'll just call it that. I was going to call it a name, but it's probably just a local name. We went to a bowling alley, and I remember that me and Chase ran the arcade games, the NASCAR arcade. And I'm like,
no
all right,
way. You're kidding me.
We were like 13, probably 12. And I remember knowing in my head, like, I've got to beat him. Like, I've got to beat him because obviously he's a better driver and I got to beat him. And honestly, I don't remember the outcome of that. It's not important. But we get to
No.
bowling, and I'm like, okay, we'll just say he's a better driver. That means I'm going to be the better bowler.
No.
That
Change
dude at
yourself from the word go right there.
that dude at 13 years old, I wouldn't say bowled nearly a perfect game, but he was pretty dang close to like the highest score you could
Wow.
get.
Wow.
And
Where else would you guys learn this information that Chase Elliott is really good at bowling? Where are you going to hear this story?
I don't know if he is now anymore, but he sure
Only
was.
one way to find out, Cody. There's only one way to find out. The
Yeah,
challenge is
you're right.
thrown down right here on a Monday night, July 12th. Chase Elliott, Cody wants you in the bowling alley, Dawsonville, Georgia. Make it happen. I got to duck out for 90 seconds. Mike, I'm sure you have questions, and then I'm going to ask you to reshare this out so we can get fan questions. And we're going to have a little bit more fun with Cody Dinsmore from the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame from Dawsonville, Georgia. And by cracky, he is giving us racing history like you've never heard before. I will be right back. Don't let Kevin and Kevin talk, please. I'll be right back.
Then I'll tell you something else that you might find interesting, because bowling was not interesting. What was fun, one couple of my favorite memories with Chase is running go-karts with them.
I
So
was
indoor,
going to ask that if you've ever raced him.
yeah, and we've got a pretty even record, about a good half and half. I feel pretty decent about that. But years ago, for about 7 years, I worked at Atlanta Motorsports Park, which is in Dawsonville. It's a 2-mile road course and a 1-mile go-kart track. A lot of elevation change because we're up in the mountains. The property they bought from the Elliots back years ago and actually backs up to the airstrip. But it's a world-class facility. I mean, at a legitimate road course, go-kart track. We had some rental go-karts that would, we had the shifter carts and the tag carts and all that people would bring, but we had the rental carts that would do every bit of 55 to 60 miles an hour. It was the real deal. There was a lot of elevation change, real deal. And I'd always wanted to try and get Chase to come out there and run. Just opportunities never would align. In 2015, I remember telling my boss at the time, I said, I'm going to get Chase out here. We're going to run. And I think he was just like, whatever. Sure you are. And 2015, I remember it was 2015, Memorial Day weekend. He ran both races at Charlotte. So he ran the 300-mile race on Saturday, the 600-mile race on Sunday, and then he decided to come out and, mess with go-karts on Monday. And so he said, why don't you come out here and run? And so we did. And, we done like 3 races or something like that. He would, he'd take the lead on one, I'd take the lead on the other. We just trade back and forth, And I remember the last race. I don't think we were busy that day. A lot of people, nobody really knew who Chase was at the time, because it's not like it is now. And, so we kind of set up something pretty good. We had a nice little rolling start with the race. Me and Chase started in the back, passed everybody pretty quickly. There's, I don't know, 15 carts out there. And, so it was like a 3-wide battle for the lead going into the last couple of turns. One guy kind of spun, got caught up in the wall, and it was just kind of me and Chase just, side by side here, coming to the start finish line. And he was just barely in the lead, and he was just, look behind me and trying to, shoo me back. And I barely got him. Where are we at here? Just a little bit. And so that was fun. But we had several different times, different occasions out there where we ran together. Just before I left out there, when he was still a Mountain Dew driver, they had a Mountain Dew corporate thing out there. I don't know what. Yeah, there you go. They had a Mountain Dew corporate event out there where I'm assuming there was some sort of a contest or something to where fans could come out. They could meet Chase. They could race go-karts against him. Yada, yada, yada. And so, he knew I was out there. And so when, I gave him what I thought was the best cart, he said, well, are you not going to come out here? And I said, well, I guess I could. I guess, if you really want me to, I guess I could. So I went and got my helmet, and really, I think he was supposed to stay racing with all the other, like, the contest winners, but that wasn't what happened. I mean, it was just, I wish I had a video of it, because I mean, one turn I'd take the lead, the next turn he'd take the lead. I mean, it was just like this, just bump drafting the entire way around. That was actually the like a few days after he won Kansas, if you remember that, in the Mountain Dew car. So it was just the perfect storm. But I always, for a while I took pride in knowing that I could keep up with him if we're in, similar go-karts. So I never got that development contract call from Hendrick, but to answer your question though about did you ever expect him to do that good? And the answer is no. Because I remember vividly that, when he, was 12, 13 years old racing late models. I mean, he done good. It was fun. It was fun to, go to the races and watch him, and, go if he'd win, go down a victory lane, talk with a little bit. And then he signed that Hendrick development contract in 2011. And I remember a few people were saying, kind of in the know, they said he's going to be the next Jeff Gordon. And I said, he's not going to be the next Jeff Gordon. He ain't going to be no Jeff Gordon. Little did I know, 5 years later, he literally took Jeff Gordon's car.
Literally.
5 years later, literally from signing a development contract to 2016, 5 years later, literally took Jeff Gordon's car.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add another 4 full-time seasons and he wins the freaking championship. I did not expect that. I don't think anybody did. I think a lot of us knew he was a dang good driver. Obviously had some good mentors, but I didn't expect that for sure.
So to pick up on what you said,
Mhm.
they're literally taking over Jeff's car. I'll tell you, was what made me hate him. I was furious that they put Michael Waltrip's Napa colors on my 24 car. My steam was coming out of my ears. Gordon was gone. And what is this awful blue and yellow 24 car on the track? The only car I liked was like the white, orange and white Hooters, because then he finally had a yellow 24. So I'll say it publicly right here to Cody. I said it to Cody. I was a Chase hater. I didn't watch him come up from, the ranks. I didn't understand why he was taking the 24 car, other than he was Bill Elliott's son. But someone said the other day that a lot of Chase Elliott fans became a Chase Elliott fan at that Martinsville race when Denny took him out. And I am absolutely one of them. And I also want to say that with all the sports championships I've been blessed with celebrating in my life, I don't have that many championship shirts or hats. I wanted you to know, Cody, and if Chase, if you watch this, I was one of the first people to get and I'm a single parent now. I stopped collecting stuff and buying die casts. I sold my Gordon die cast and it broke my heart. I had the original Rainbow 24 and my favorite was the Pepsi, the black and blue Pepsi 07 car. I sold those off to be a single parent, and so I stopped buying myself stuff. But this is the Midnight Owl that was run at Daytona. I went to that race, and Homestead. That's my home track, and I was one of the first people that, even though it said it was going to be like a 3-month waiting period because they didn't have any of them ready, I bought that sucker. I went on Fanatics, and I was thinking about saving this for only playoff races, like my Red Sox hat, but
Heck no.
No.
I'll tell you what, that's a good looking hat, but at the Hall of Fame, I think we're probably the only physical location, at least in Georgia, that sells Chase Elliott merchandise, and obviously we have a pretty good hookup because we get,
Right?
we get all the stuff. We don't have an online store. We're all, in person, but we get everything new.
That's
We
fantastic.
there's nothing that's like been sitting in the warehouse for 6 months that never sold. Like we get the new stuff, and we got those hats right there. I think it was like the week after Thanksgiving or something like that, or whenever they first came out.
Yeah.
And we sold 72 of those hats in maybe a week or 5 days or something. It was
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
Because once word got out that, hey, if you want one of those and you don't want to wait till March, get to the Hall of Fame.
That is awesome. And now, Mike, I'm going to ask you, if you will, just to kind of share this with the folks and let them know that, Cody, we're already 15 minutes past where we wanted to be for fan questions. I kind of sent a little feeler out, even though I'm in Facebook jail. I can still do stuff. But we have people that are probably going to want to ask Cody some questions about the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, about Chase Elliott. And the first one comes from Fat Chris in Norwich, Connecticut.
Well,
and he wants to know, when you hang out with Chase, no matter how frequent or infrequent it is, what kind of beer do y'all like to drink?
It's been a while for me. Chase is just so busy nowadays. So I don't see him a whole lot, just because he is very busy, few and far between. But he is an ultra man.
Okay.
He is an ultra man, and I learned why, because you can have quite a few of those and still be good to go.
Which is why I'm a Miller Lite man to this day. You can keep going and going and going, but Ultra has less calories, so I get it.
Only 96 calories.
Only, right? And it's still it tastes pretty okay.
Hmm.
But hopefully, we had Jordan Miller who came in with a comment. Tell Cody about Chase Elliott Nation, which I guess is a Facebook group that Jordan is a part of.
I'm an admin in that group.
Are you really?
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of I'm an admin in a couple different groups on Facebook, and that's a full-time job in itself. So
fantastic.
But yeah, it's a good group for sure.
Wow. One more from Fat Chris in Norwich, Connecticut. Would you mind sharing this on your show, your socials, this interview?
Sure.
All right.
I gotta wait for the right time. Sometimes that this isn't just isn't just the right time to post something and get the most reactions.
Understood. Bill Bingham comes in. Do you build cars on the side?
No, I wish I had time. I am currently looking for a 39 Ford. I'm not a mechanical genius. I can tell you the history about cars. I don't know how to work on them. And of course, I work 6 or 7 days a week, so I don't have a lot of free time anyway. But something that's been near and dear to me is to try and recreate. Remember, I was talking about some of the early guys earlier, the beach racers from Dawsonville. There's one by the name of Lloyd C., who I won't really get into because I could spend again another good 30 minutes on that. But Lloyd C. was a Dawsonville driver. Bill France, who was the founder of NASCAR, called him the most pure driver he had ever seen. And you think about all the people that Bill France had ever seen race. Bill France died in 92. And for him to call Lloyd C. the best driver he had ever seen. Anyway, Lloyd C. was killed in 41. We're coming up on the 80th anniversary of his death. I am vastly trying to find a 39 Ford to build a tribute car. I cleaned up his grave on his 100th birthday, which back in 2019. It's in the Dawsonville Cemetery. It hadn't been touched since 1941 when he died. And I'd love to really dive into that history as well, because that means a lot to me, and especially to tie into Chase, because it's I wouldn't say one and the same, but you can't have one without the other.
Correct.
And so anyway, I'm looking for 39 Ford to build a tribute car to Lloyd C. to keep his memory alive, because the people that saw him race are gone. The people that know his name are going, and there's such a gap to my generation that has never even heard of him. And he's kind of one of those folk hero kind of guys that, I don't watch westerns, but you know who Wyatt Earp and Butch Cassidy and the Lone
John
Ranger
Wayne.
and John Wayne. Like, I don't watch westerns, but you still know who those guys are. I don't know a lot about Bonnie and Clyde, but you know who they are. There's no reason that these bootleggers turned racers can't be the same way.
Which is great because it leads into a question I got from a text message earlier in the broadcast, and I waited to bring it up now. How did you first get contact? I'm sorry, let me say their name. Lee says, how did you first get contacted about Lost Speedways, and how much fun did you have doing it?
Well, that's a great question, and I honestly I take that for granted because I'm just so blessed to. I had somebody tell me that today. They came into the distillery and they said, were you on Lost Speedways? And I said, yeah, that was me. And that was a cool thing. Now, honestly, I have not met Dale, and that was one thing that I really wanted to do. The day that I filmed that was the NASCAR Hall of Fame induction, so he had to be there for that. I've now let's back up a little bit. I went to Charlotte back in January to get Bill Elliott's first Cup win car, and I stopped by Junior Motorsports because Matthew Dillner has become a good friend, and just gonna stop by to show him the car. I had the first win car of Bill's. I was on my way back, and Junior wasn't there again. And you may have seen the I don't know, commercial feature preview for this new Chase documentary they're doing. And Junior was here in Dawsonville for that, but it just didn't work out, and he got to town late, didn't get to come to the Hall of Fame like he wanted to. I'm hoping it'll be a return trip. But anyway, to answer your question, I'm sorry I'm long-winded.
No worries.
Matthew Dillner contacted me through the Hall of Fame Facebook page, which I do all the social media for the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. And I think he was just looking for information or something. This was way back. And he called me one day, and I was actually, for an old job, I was test driving a truck is what I was doing. We were looking for a work truck. And I remember I was test driving this truck, and my phone rings, and look at my phone. I'm like, it was a Mooresville number. It said Mooresville, North Carolina. I'm like, who in the heck is this? I'm like, I wasn't upset. I'm like,
damn likely.
Like calling me, I don't care about no extended car warranty while I'm test driving a truck, whatever. So I answer, I'm like, hello. And turns out it's Matthew Dillner, and I'm like, can I call you right back? I said, I'm just give me a second. So we, and we're great friends now. Matthew's a great guy, such a good guy. And so they asked me if I would be interested in doing the part for the history part for the Middle Georgia Raceway episode. And I said, you tell me when and where, and I'll be there. And so that was just such a cool thing that, I've done a little bit of TV and a little bit of broadcasting and radio and that kind of stuff before, but not on that level, not on that scale. And so that was another proud moment of mine, not to, toot my own horn. I don't like to do that, but
nothing wrong.
One of the coolest things, because when it was released on the Peacock network, I'm old school. I didn't have a smart TV. I had to go to a friend's house to watch it. I know. I'm the only person my age that doesn't do that kind of stuff. I don't have
to be my age. You don't know how to work it.
It's a Roku, dude. It's $20 at Walmart. It'll change your life.
I know. I don't do that. But so anyway, I think it was during Texas, the Texas race last year's rain delay, and I just got an influx of friend requests on Facebook, and I couldn't figure out why. And then somebody, I had a couple of calls and texts and said, "Hey, you were on TV." And I said, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Yeah, you were at some racetrack talking about it." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know they were going to put that on TV."
Some racetrack.
But
Some racetrack, right?
Yeah.
Petty's won there. Petty's won there a bunch of times, but it's some racetrack.
I want to state for the record, I knew Cody before Lost Speedways, but I did text him the shot of my TV. I'm like, dude, you're on my TV, man. What's up?
Okay, I got a semi-similar story to his Matthew Dillner story. Is when I was doing my old podcast, I would reach out via email. Hey, would you like to be a guest on my show? Here's my information, yada, yada, yada. And I'm lying in bed one night with my girlfriend at the time, who doesn't need to be spoken of. And my phone rings, and I answer it, and I say, obviously you say hello.
Yeah.
Is it Chris? Yes, it is. Hi, this is Jim Laritz. If you're an Atlanta Braves fan, Jim Laritz is a dirty word. But for me, I'm doing a happy dance. Jim Laritz was the hero of the 96 World Series, a big 2-run home run. And I'm like, yes, Mr. Laritz, what can I do for you? The whole time doing a happy dance. He can't see this. She's watching me like I've got a thumb growing out of my forehead and 2 kids run out of my butt cheeks. And yes, sir. Absolutely. Saturday at noon. I got this. Thank you very much. He hears me being so professional. I hang up the phone. I was like, Jim Laritz. She didn't get it. But, to talk to people that you have heard or look up to, or in some cases, like I'm quite sure, Cody, in your lifetime that, with your association with the Elliots, you've probably met people. I'm like, oh my God, what's it like? Can I meet him? Can you hook this up? It's just, there's something about when you do this kind of thing and talking to, in some cases, your heroes, that you have to almost suspend disbelief.
Well,
we're getting a flag on the play.
Flag on the play because this is what has become my tradition for interviewing celebrity guests, which you are. It's tradition to ask you, what is your fanboy hero moment? Now, I would bet Chris $10, $15, you're going to say it was Tony Stewart.
Honestly, I've only met Tony one time, and that was in 2007. Still, when he was at Joe Gibbs, and he was nice. It was at a fan fair, so it's not like it was one-on-one or anything like that. He was nice. He signed my jacket and my Home Depot jacket. Sorry, and I've got like a framed. I bought a framed thing that day that was like 25 were made. Picture of Tony and Denny and a piece of their tire and all that kind of stuff. I don't really care for Denny Hamlin right now, but I had him sign those things, and he was nice, and he was my favorite driver from then on out. But still, kind of like I alluded to earlier, the first time I ever met Bill Elliott, I was starstruck, and honest to God, I was starstruck. I didn't know what to say. The next time I saw him, I went up and I said, Mr. Elliott. I was like 11 years old or something. I said, I'm sorry. I said, I was very shy last time we talked. And he said, oh, that's all right. He said, I was pretty shy myself too for a long time.
Oh.
And he was, he was a fan favorite, but he done the interviews when he had to, but other than that, he tried to stay out of the spotlight. And, obviously the more you got to see him, the more at ease you were. But if you would have told me when I was 11 years old that, years later you'd be, doing favors for him and going to get, his race car or that kind of stuff.
I think you know the answer to this question, but I want you to bring it up on the screen because
I see it
earlier. Bill Bingham asked, did you ever get a chance to meet the great Dale Earnhardt Sr.? I always see pictures of young Chase on his lap.
No, that was I became a race fan. 2003 was the first really when I got to become a racing fan. So, and that was just from watching on TV and just taking interest because my father and my grandfather obviously were Bill Elliott fans, and that was the race where he blew tire in the last lap, and I saw what that meant to them, and I thought I want to watch this. So no, I don't think I went to my first NASCAR race until 2007, I think, Charlotte.
Oh, I was hoping you'd say Daytona because that was mine. The 500 was my first race, which sadly for you I was front row and center watching him make an idiot of himself in turn 4, and I got this great like Polaroid picture of his car crashed on the inside wall. I was standing up, and there was a junior fan behind me in my flaming DuPont jacket. Yes, that's right. My bright colored flaming DuPont jacket.
You admit
was
that in public.
up, cheering, and I was being booed and told to sit down, and I was like, no, that is the greatest thing. I was sad for Kurt. That was the best thing I'd ever seen in my life.
I don't know why people aren't commenting on here, but I got another text message question. In your opinion, what driver do you see coming up as the future of NASCAR? And I'm guessing they mean like 5 years or less.
Like 5 years from now.
Like I'm gonna try to put this into context. I think I know what they mean. A driver with, say, less than 10 years experience, an Anthony Alfredo, a Matt DiBenedetto, a Ryan Preece on the Cup level.
Okay.
I'll throw Ty Gibbs in there too. Because this particular viewer comes from Connecticut, I think they're going with Alfredo or Preece. If you're looking at someone with, say, we'll call it 10 years, because it really does take several years to get your feet up underneath you on the NASCAR Cup Series. Who do you see as the future of NASCAR?
That's a tough one, because I was just talking to somebody today about Ty Gibbs. I'm not a fan of Ty Gibbs at all. And, I mean that in the nicest way possible, but I'm just not a fan of him. That being said, I think that he's already shown that he's got the talent. Obviously, he's got the backing from grandpa to run those sponsorless Xfinity and ARCA cars and this, that, and the other. And he's only barely 18. So
yep.
Obviously I'm betting, my bet is that Denny Hamlin will step away. Let's see, was this 2021? I'm gonna say by 2025, maybe a little bit before then. I don't think that Ty Gibbs is going to spend a long time in the Xfinity Series. I think that he's already proven that. I think that he'll be 1 full year in Xfinity, and I think he'll go to Cup. And I think that he will take over that number 11 car. I see Kurt Busch going to that second 23XL car next year. Because every time that you think Kurt Busch is going to call a year or call it a career, he goes out and he wins another race,
This past weekend in Atlanta Motor Speedway, I'm watching that race, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Cody, but as that battle's going on, and there's been a couple other battles, I think 3 of them, where, Kurt and Kyle are battling for the lead. Again, I am an unabashed. I respect the hell out of what he does inside the car, but as soon as he opens his mouth, hashtag FKB, meaning Kyle. I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, Kyle's getting on him, but Kurt's pulling away, and then Kyle gets on him, and then Kurt pulls away. I have never in my life rooted harder for Kurt Busch as I did this past Sunday, not because it was Kyle behind him, but because this is a guy, much like we talked about earlier with Jeff Gordon, with Jimmy Johnson, has matured so much as a person and has always been a fantastic race car driver, but hasn't had the best equipment up underneath him. And I'm not saying Ganassi is a lower tier team like a JTG or a Rick Ware, but they are mid-pack. They're not exactly Stuart Haas or Gibbs or whatever, or Hendrick Motorsports. To see him wheel that car from Ganassi,
that's evidence from Larson, from the 42 to the number 5.
Exactly. When again, was it 2-3 years ago? It was the Truex and Larson show. If Truex didn't win, Larson did, or they were battling 2, 3, 4. And it shows that Ganassi, and at the time, he was still Furniture Row, but he was transitioning into Gibbs.
Right.
Speaking of Truex, of course, don't say a word, Mike, because my daughter will be watching, and she will slap the snot out of your face if you disparage the good name of Martin Truex. She's 13. Don't do it. Anyway, but
for me, I was not a Kurt Busch fan at all until maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe 5 years ago, 6 or something like that, when I kind of, I don't want to say felt sorry for him, but I think I could see that he went to the bottom and then he worked his way up. And when he hit the bottom, he found humility. He found the humbleness that he never had before. And ever since then, I like Kurt Busch. I mean, I don't go out and buy his gear, but I really like Kurt Busch. I like him. But what I was saying about silly season, because it's running rampant right now, I see him going to Michael Jordan's team, Michael and Denny's team. I see Chastain going with the Trackhouse or whatever it's called. But Kurt will stay there 2 years, 3 years. I think when he leaves, Denny will finish his career there, and then Ty will take over the 11 car. That's just what I see. I don't know if I'm right or not, but that's kind of what I'm seeing there.
Right. So let me say, you started in 2003. I started in 2002. If you were watching in 2003 as a fan, Kurt Busch is the original Kyle Busch. At that time, from 2003 to about 2000, I would say 2008. Yeah, he was Kyle Busch. He was arrogant, he was mouthy, and he could drive the wheels off those Roush cars and the Penske cars. Bristol was his track. He won like 5 in a row there, 4 in a row.
Bristol, and he had some good success in Atlanta, you know.
I get
the number 2 car.
I get goosebumps, guys, because I was a Gordon fan. And I hated to see him win, but damn did I respect him. I respected him so hard. And seeing him come back up and, all the James Finch, and if you listen, a solid point I thought of while you're talking is if you listen to that episode of the Dale Jr. Download, man, I mean, I was moved to tears.
I'm gonna piggyback your point. When he goes from Roush to Penske and he's piloting that Blue Deuce after Rusty retires, I wasn't exactly a fan because growing up and as a Rusty fan, I'm like, not the right guy. He's not the right guy. And then he gets into his trouble. And he moves to Finch and he moves to Furniture Row and he's bouncing Phoenix Racing, whoever the hell they are. And he keeps bouncing team to team until he really found a home with Stewart Haas Racing. But it took that 4 or 5 year period for him to mature.
Yeah.
Oh, it did. I mean, when he said what he said to Jerry Punch, which ultimately got him fired from Penske.
Yep.
I mean, I couldn't stand to think about him. Of course, I was a Tony Stewart fan. Him and Stewart always seemed to find each other, taking each other out, and I just didn't have any use for him then. But kind of what changed my mind is when he did get fired from Penske. He took the ride at Phoenix, James Finch, in that 51 car. Excuse me. And I thought, I'm sure a lot of people did at the time, thought that Kurt's done. He is done. That's it. He's going to do some starting parks in this James Finch car, and that's it. And the one that stuck out to me was when Sonoma that year is like 2012, and the car was battered, beaten. I think he didn't have third gear maybe. And he ended up finishing like third. He was in second, got past the last couple of laps, finished third. I don't know if you remember that or not. That was impressive. Maybe he lost the power steering. There was something wrong with the car. And that was impressive. And I'm like, wow, that was really good. And he gave a really good post-race interview. He got on with Furniture Row when they were still very, very little. Go ahead.
I got another question. Again, text message. Guys, if you were watching with StreamYard, give StreamYard permission to put your comments up. You don't have to text me or Mike to get your questions to Cody. And I'm not quite sure what this has to do with the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame or Chase Elliott, but the question from Jimmy is, give us your thoughts on Jeremy Mayfield, and do you think he's still cooking meth?
Oh, my gosh.
Hey.
You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
He's a stand-up comedian by trade, so I get where he's going with this.
No, I think that Mayfield saw the real side of Brian France years before anybody else did. And that's my opinion. I think that Jeremy Mayfield got screwed. I think that he did, and that's just my opinion. I mean, not everybody has to agree with that, but I think that he saw the side of Brian France that we all didn't see for another 10 years.
Okay.
And once he was out, he couldn't do anything about it. Now, one point I want to make, I like to refer as kind of a new chapter in NASCAR began. I think it was August the 5th, 2018. If you're not familiar with that date, that was Chase Elliott's first win. It has nothing to do with it. But that did kind of start his reign as the next popular driver. What I'm talking about is, if you remember that night at Watkins Glen, that was when Brian France got pulled over, got arrested, DUI.
Yep.
He stepped away, and I was always a big fan of his uncle, for Jim France, for coming in, because I'm a big road racing fan, IMSA fan. Jim France turned around IMSA. He brought it back from the ashes and made IMSA into what it is, in my opinion. And I didn't realize that he was Bill Jr.'s brother, Bill France's other son. So he's been around the sport for a long time. And I think that he really helped bring NASCAR back on track. So I just got to add that date in 2018 was when Chase started his reign. That's when Brian left. Everything just got better. So
I love the fact that there's more road courses now. I love the fact that NASCAR is kind of expanding their horizons so that the booger pickers don't go, all they do is drive around and turn left. Well, now your argument is invalid. Watch the sport, because you can just watch an oval track like a Daytona, like in Atlanta, like New Hampshire weekend. And you can, if you watch hard enough, you can see the intricacies and the science and everything about it. For me, it's about speed. It's about battle. It's about just amazing, wonderful, just competition.
Yeah. A long time ago, when I was young, I didn't understand road racing, even on NASCAR. I couldn't remember the turns. I just didn't understand it. I didn't really like it. The one that changed my mind was that Watkins Glen race about 2011 or 12, when Busch took the lead on the white flag, and then it was that all-out white knuckle battle between Keselowski and Ambrose. That's the one that changed my mind. And then if you remember, like, the next 3 or 4 Watkins Glen races all had darn good racing. So I was a road racing fan before Chase figured it out. Obviously, I'm an even bigger fan now, because of, my favorite driver winning, 7 of the last 9 road races out there. But road racing to me is a lot of fun, whether it's NASCAR or IMSA or sports cars, Trans Am, whatever. I just enjoy road racing. I know not everybody's like that, but I think you see some of the best racing all year when you're turning right and left.
Amen. And one last question for me before I lay out, and Mike's going to kind of walk us out. How do I get a bottle of that? How do I get a bottle of that fantastic elixir that you work with?
Well, unfortunately, it's against Georgia law to ship.
I'll drive. I don't care.
Well, come on down. So, I was mentioning earlier, over text, that we've got a unique facility in Dawsonville, and I think I talked about it a lot earlier when we were talking about the Hall of Fame and the Chase Elliott celebration. So in Dawsonville, under one roof, we have the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, the official state racing museum. We've got the Dawsonville Moonshine Distillery. I can never do this right. There we go. We've got the Dawsonville Moonshine Distillery, which it's Bill Elliott branded now. But it's, the first legal distillery in Georgia. And we've got Dawsonville City Hall under one roof. So, I don't think anywhere else in America can say that under one roof you got all that neat stuff. But, we do. I just sell it. I don't make it or anything like that. But it's a way for me to get paid and still be at the museum, which is pretty neat. And you look back and you can't have one without the other. And there's so many people that come in on a daily basis that has no idea that stock car racing is derived directly from moonshine. So it's always neat to really, kind of give that pathway from the moonshine to stock car racing, and, right on up to Chase. Obviously Chase has nothing to do with moonshine, but again, you've got that Dawsonville connection where 80 years ago you had the guys running liquor out of Dawsonville, competing in those early stock car races and winning. And now you've got, generations later, you've got another Dawsonville guy doing the same winning. He's just not hauling moonshine. So it really is just so intriguing about how everything relates back to each other.
We got one more question coming in before I lay out to Mike.
Yeah, we talked about the pool room already. You explained
it. So, Bill, you go back and watch the. Oh my God! Did Cody tell the most fantastic story about the pool room?
Beautiful story.
He's going to put it on his bucket list to visit. So, Bill,
the pool room isn't just a gimmick. It's not a bar. It's not just a place where the siren goes off. It is a dang good hamburger too.
Okay.
I mean, they cook the food the same way they did in the 60s. The place hasn't changed in the last couple of decades. I mean, on the inside, it's a shrine to the early Dawsonville guys that I've been talking about, early part of Bill's career. But they make some of the best hamburgers. That's just, to me, it's like comfort food. Okay. Hand cut the fries, hand do the patties. They cook them to order on the grill, just like they did in the 60s. And it's just part of it. I always tell people, you can't come to Dawsonville and call yourself a racing fan and not go to the pool room, the museum, and the distillery. So,
Bill, right there, Road Trip Jones. We're on it, kid. All three. We're going to do it.
Come on.
So, to piggyback on the cheeseburger.
Oh, yeah.
Cody, when you go to North Turn, the North Turn, there's a north and south. I haven't been to the south. I haven't been to the south one. It looks more sketchy. I don't know about that one. The North Turn one has like a little museum in there. Now the burger is amazing. The seafood in Daytona Beach, they catch the fish fresh. Everything is fresh, never frozen. Seafood is fantastic. The food is delicious there. I think I first saw Rutledge Wood do a little thing on the North Turn, and that's where I knew I had to go there. The second best burger is in Boston, and the name of the place escapes me. The Ye Old Tavern. The Ye Old Tavern. It's very old timey. It's 1700s.
Oh wow!
It's got a huge history there.
He gets a pass on this one. It is really good.
I told them, and I wrote a review on Google, that's the best burger I've ever had. Now, the North Turn has a good burger because you're around racing atmosphere, but the downside of that place was I had to request that they put the race on. They didn't even know what channel it was on, and I was like, you guys have dropped the ball because there isn't a TV with the race on right now.
When we go Daytona. That's crazy, but they're not a racing town anymore. I mean, it's at the pool room. It's heartbreaking. At the pool room when it's a Sunday afternoon, you better believe that the race is going to be on. You better believe that it's going to be a packed house. If it's one, there may not be people there for all 500 miles or whatever they're racing, but a lot of local people, they may be watching a race, and if he's doing pretty good in the last little bit, they'll start heading up there. And it's something to be a part of for sure. If you can, and I always tell people, if you want to hear that siren, just come when there's a road race. You got a pretty good chance. So if anybody wants to come down during Watkins Glen week to Dawsonville, that's a good chance to listen to it.
I feel a road trip coming on for myself. Bill doesn't live too far from me here in Connecticut. He's a Connecticut race fan. I could probably think of a couple other guys we can jam into a van and come down there. I'll let you know ahead of time. But I got to let Mike lead this out. This was his baby. And before I thank Mike, Cody, I'm going to lay out. I'm going to kind of watch as this burns. But thank you so much. I've had so much fun. I've learned so much in just talking to you for the last 2 hours. This has been fantastic for me as an old guy, and B, as somebody who's watched these races for more years than I care to count. I've had too much fun. This was incredible. I'd love to have you back again.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is my absolute number one biggest passion in life is to preserve racing history. And like I've said a couple times already about the early Dawsonville guys that made the history, that ran the Moonshine, that really helped form stock car racing. Whether you're a big history nerd like myself or not, I mean, you still kind of, again, we can't talk about Chase and even Bill without seeing the people that came before them and helped pave the way, especially from the same hometown. I mean, that's just what's neat, that there's so few places that have the roots. You were talking about when Logano won the championship, Middletown, Connecticut didn't do anything. I kind of wonder sometimes if that would have happened if we had no racing history prior, if there was no Bill Elliott, the NASCAR driver, if there was no beach racers from Dawsonville, if it was just Chase that happened to live in Dawsonville, would we still have that celebration? Probably so. Just because he lives in Dawsonville, he doesn't live in Charlotte. He still lives here. He's a part of the community. But again, my biggest passion is preserving the racing history for generations to come, and that's what I love to do, is just educate and tell stories and just keep all that going.
It's your show, kid.
All right. Yeah, I got the reins. So I have three things that I didn't get to talk about if you got time to stick around.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one is Jordan mentioned the Chase Elliott. It's a fan group. It's called the Chase Elliott Family of Fans, something like that. You mentioned you were admin. I'm not sure that's accurate. Jordan and I formed that group after Chase won the championship. I formed NASCAR Daily and started all of this.
Got it.
Jordan was my first guy to interview Bill Lester. That was under my podcast. I set that up. But it was his idea, and we both kind of came together and let's make a sister group to NASCAR Daily. Are you sure you're in that one? Because if not, we will make that happen.
Oh, we'll find it. I'm an admin in Chase Elliott Nation.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people in it, but my apologies for that. I must have misunderstood. But
he does want you to know we're up to almost 2,000 members. Just from starting
that's better than 1,000.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the first 500 were people trying to sell fake Chase Elliott t-shirts, but still, we weeded out. We weeded them out. Okay, so I wanted a question, and this could be for Chris too, but I really want to hear Cody. Cody, could you ever see them like we're seeing with Nashville, Chicago? We're seeing street races, maybe not NASCAR, but wouldn't it be amazing as someone who lived there? I've driven my personal car on Daytona Beach, and the goosebumps, it's just my head almost explodes when I'm doing it, and I realize the history that I'm on. Paying $10 is the best $10 I've ever paid to drive on the sand at Daytona Beach. And during the Rolex, I paid $15 to finally drive my vehicle under the tunnel at Daytona. Both tunnels. I literally turned it into like a theme park ride for my nephews, where we went in the tunnel turn 1, out the tunnel turn 4. We just did that for about an hour during the Roar before the 24. But what would be what would be like, other than the city of Daytona officials signing off on it and the locals? I know living there, the locals hate the noise, but what if we could bring back that A1A beach, even if it's a short race?
If you told me that 10 years ago, I'd say there's no way in heck that would ever happen. That's just, it never in a million years would happen. I still think it wouldn't, but you gotta look at the fact that NASCAR is looking for things to attract viewers, and the street courses have been thrown out. We might get one of those. I know they've been talking about Chicago, and like you said, Nashville. Nashville is, in my opinion, one of the most accommodating cities that NASCAR has ever been to. They want NASCAR there so bad. The city does. It seems like it. At least maybe if not the city government, the city businesses and everything, they want NASCAR there more so than any other town that I think they've ever been to.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Huh?
I didn't know that. That's really cool. I didn't understand why we moved from New York City to then Vegas as the championship.
Well, I just think that, just from what I've seen, I think that just there are so many businesses that are just so open to NASCAR coming. Whereas, you think about Las Vegas, like they're going to get a lot of people anyway. New York City, they're going to get a lot of people anyway. Nashville's the same way, but I think Nashville appeals to more of NASCAR's demographic. But I think that look at the fan turnout at Nashville Super Speedway. That was a pretty big house. Notice the special paint schemes that several drivers ran going to Nashville. It's not like it was a July 4th race. It wasn't Memorial Day. It wasn't like Daytona 500. It was just some random race at Nashville, and there was a lot of special paint schemes relating to Nashville. So, your question about Daytona. I'm sorry. I don't know. I think that it is going to. Huh?
I'm sorry, but I said it wouldn't necessarily have to be NASCAR like stock car because the sand kicks up and all that. You'd have to build probably a special car for the underneath the corrosion from the salt water. Yeah, so it could be like a off season. I would see it as an off season. Charity race maybe.
Yeah, I don't think it's totally out of the question. I mean, you look at NASCAR going back to dirt on Bristol. Eldora for the trucks going to
SRX.
Right, and then SRX going. I don't think it's impossible to do it again, even just for some test runs or speed runs. I know that the group that puts on the parade. Just before speed weeks, they go through a lot of loops and hoops and jumps and permits and everything to get that original track layout approved for the parade, and that's a big thing. But the last year they done that before COVID, 2019, they had like 40,000 people show up for that parade. So if that doesn't tell you that people still care about history, I don't know what does. Yeah. But I think it's possible. It would be a big stretch, though.
I'm going to agree with Cody on this one, and you did kind of throw my name in there, so I'm going to take 30 seconds. And I think you'd have to find a market for, like you mentioned, a street race. I don't think Daytona is ever going to happen again on the sand because of the way the cars are built. And we learned this during Bristol Dirt where they were getting build up underneath. I don't think they thought ahead enough to build a car with a higher back end that could kick the dirt out. There was so much going on that back end that was weighing them down that became a problem later in the race. So if you're looking for something new and something exciting, Cody mentioned Chicago and Nashville as one of them. But one of my favorite races on a series that I don't watch much past NASCAR, but I always tune into the Indy 500 and certain big races of the year. The Detroit street race is always a destination for me because, you're whipping through the streets of Detroit. They have this wonderful track laid out. A friend of mine out in Detroit, Mark Cicchini, goes to this race every year, and he hates racing, but it's a destination. And if you can get, let's say, I'm going to New Hampshire this coming weekend where the what is the word I'm looking for here? You can get 100,000 fans there. Okay. In the middle of nowhere, Loudon, New Hampshire. But if you put it in Detroit, you're talking about you can triple or even quadruple the number of people that are putting their eyes on this race live, buying tickets to go see this race live. Now, factor in 1 million plus on television, and they see again, it goes back to when people go, all they do is drive fast and turn left. Well, again, you're asked out again because with the proliferation of road courses that we've seen this year and last year, and now going forward, if we did the Detroit street track that other racing venues do, now you put NASCAR out there, you're basically killing the stigma of drive fast, turn left, and it would be a success. Start with a market like Detroit where you get Michigan twice a year, and it fills because Michigan is one of the fastest tracks on the circuit. Now, you add a road course in the street where people walk around and do their thing and whatnot on a regular basis, but on Sunday, it's cordoned off. Watch the stars of NASCAR, 40 strong, come blazing through your streets. The next day, you can go buy your milk or go wherever and see the rubber laid down on the street and go,
Yeah.
good golly, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Let me say, and I'm going to mention my good friend Tony Robinson because he was my coworker at security at the Wyndham down on Daytona Beach. And he and I would talk about, or we would watch like on YouTube, the old footage of the guys racing, duking it out on A1A. And let me tell you, living there, we got bike week, we got truck week, we got all kinds of things. And then, of course, speed weeks and the July, now August race. But we looked at each other and we were like, man, wouldn't it be something for us hardcore racing fans, guys like you, Cody, that to see people racing on A1A down on the beach again. You know, I know there's a lot going to have to go into it, and I kind of think of Dale Jr. being that advocate for North Wilkesboro, which I might ask you about, and Tony Stewart making his own series. If we could get these guys, you know, guys like you, historians, NASCAR Hall of Fame, put on some kind of show, I really think fans would come out to see that. Especially if Chase Elliott runs it. Chase Elliott and Haley Deegan run it, we'll be there.
I think so too, because I think that it's kind of like how you remember when the Truck Series went back to Rockingham for the first time. It was a packed crowd for that first race because they had no problem trying to convince people to come back. It was just that you had to have a good product to keep them there, which, you know, obviously they went one more year, and then it wasn't that it was off schedule for 2014. And so I think it's kind of, it would be the same way. You know, you look at North Wilkesboro, which, you know, I think that there's something in the works for that. I don't know what it is. There is something in the works. If
Junior's behind it, there's something to it.
Oh yeah, I mean that, but I mean Marcus Smith, I think is really, I think he wants to see it happen. I think there's been too many little snippets here and there, just like Marcus, Camping World, what's his last name, Lemoy or something like that.
You
know, he said that, you know, he would donate $1 million to the cause, and he would open up a Camping World store there on site to help out. The deal with the North Carolina government, you know, promising $10 million to that track, to Rockingham, to Charlotte, you know, from COVID relief or however they were going to like word it to move some of that money to that track. Whether it's going to be dirt or asphalt, I don't know what it is. I mean, there's that grassroots movement of bring back the Speedway. We want North Wilkesboro back. I mean, I see everybody's Facebook little banner, you know, whatever you call it, like that little thing on your profile picture. We want North Wilkesboro back. Something is going on with it. And I don't
mine.
Do what now?
I didn't know that was a thing. I need to put that on mine.
Yeah, I mean, there is something going on with it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is, you know, something that's going to be announced this year, next year, year after, 5 years down the road, whatever it is. But just my prediction, they are doing something with that track. There's just way too many things that has been hinted at, the little snippets here and there, to make us believe they're just going to tear it down. They're not going to do that. You know, something is going to happen with it.
Okay, so you have been, you're obviously, to me, you're a celebrity, and you've been name dropping the whole thing, and eventually eventually Chris and I will figure out how to condense the show from 2 hours. It hasn't happened
No,
yet.
tonight. You know what? I'm gonna stop you right there. Tonight, totally worth 2 hours. Absolutely, 1,000%. I wanted to get my laundry done, get it folded, go pick up my kid off the airplane tomorrow. Wrong. I'm going to lose sleep. This was I'm going to watch this again when this is over as I'm folding my laundry. This was fantastic. Yes, I'm an old guy. I'm a dad. I do my thing. But good God, Cody, I had so much fun tonight. But go ahead with your point, Mike, because you obviously want to cut Cody off at the knees.
I do?
Well, that's what it sounded like.
Hey, I gotta be up at 7. I am a parent, and luckily he's with Mamaw right now. He's entertained, but no, man. So you've been name dropping a lot, and I will admit, being a Chase Elliott super fan, I wanted you on here to talk Chase and Bill. You mentioned Matthew Dillner, but other than the Elliots, what would you say is like? You would tell people, I know name drop. Like, what is your, besides Chase and Bill?
I don't know. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of people in the industry. I mean, maybe I don't, have their phone numbers or, go to dinner with them once a week or anything like that. But, just having acquaintances and people that you can respect and that I'm just fortunate enough that respect me, and to maybe hear some good word that they might say, like Ed Clark, who's the president of Atlanta Motor Speedway, is a great guy, and apparently I've heard that he really respects me as well, and I heard that just recently, and I'm like, really? Well, that's really neat, but there's just a lot of people in the industry that I just greatly appreciate, and just getting to know, and it's like, I quit collecting autographs years ago because I would rather, whoever it is, I'd rather just shake their hand, get a picture.
It's more about the memory than it is the memento, is what you're saying.
Right.
I'm going to prove your point. Look who decided to show up. It's Corey, the third head. In my phone, I've saved the phone numbers of past interviewees that I've done, and I don't do this often, but every now and again, somebody will say, oh, you don't know so-and-so, and then I show them my phone. That's the drummer from Anthrax right there. And if you don't know Anthrax, it's okay because you're all country music bumpkins, and I get it. But yeah. That's just my one dig for the night. I like country just as much as anybody. I just don't like whiny country. I like man country. Garth Brooks, Travis Tritt, George Strait, man country. I can't get into I can't call them the D word anymore. The chicks. I can't get into that. But, when name dropping is not a problem if you have an acquaintance or you're their friends. And I'm going to say this in Cody's defense. If you make the connection and you have a friendship like I did with a former interview guest of mine who passed away this past September, now coming up on 1 year, I miss him to death because we wouldn't talk about the world that he was in. We talked about politics. We talked about him being a grandfather. We talked about life in general. We talked about sports. He was his son played for Ohio State, and I'm a big Ohio State fan. So every Saturday, Joe and I are on the text message gimmick talking about Ohio State football. His son moved on to the LA Rams and then unfortunately ended his career with the Saints. But there was something there. We made a friendship. And, when you have moments like that, like Cody has, like I've had, and now, Mike has now entered this particular world that I've been in and you've been in for multiple years. It's not about name dropping if there's a real connection. And
right.
When I listen to you these last couple hours, you're not talking about, Chase Elliott as if, look, I know Chase Elliott. You're speaking of him like a human being, and same with Bill, and same with doing the Hall of Fame and all the people you've met. And I don't want to make fun of Mike, but sometimes, and I'm not, Mike. Please understand, it's not name dropping when you have a heartfelt connection.
Okay, my point was that not to just see him as Chase Elliott's friend. I was kind of curious if there was another one that he was like, if there was one that he was particularly proud of besides them, because we talk about them a lot. If there was another one that we didn't know about.
So if I can understand the question, you're asking Cody as if you would ask, say, me, if I were new to this, to your world, who is his Joe Laurinaitis?
I don't know what that means, but my Bill Lester.
Joe Laurinaitis was, God bless his soul, was a friend of mine, professional wrestler. If you've ever watched it, he was a Road Warrior Animal. His son played for Ohio State, went on to the Rams. Unfortunately, ended his career with the Saints, and Joe and I shared quite the bond, and I miss him every day.
So, yeah, I basically just meant if there was one that we didn't know about, because that's the one. You live in Dawsonville. That's the one that you're most famous for. Was there one that you would name drop that we would be like, oh, my gosh, like I was surprised about Matthew Dillner, despite you being on Lost Speedways. That could have just been you happen to be at the museum thing. So I just wondered if there was one that, was not so public.
Jocko Flacco.
Like Bill Lester Bill Lester's my personal hero.
Right. I would say that and I wouldn't really say I knew him. I had the great fortune of meeting Raymond Parks on several occasions before he passed away. Raymond Parks, I talked about earlier, was the kind of like the godfather of stock car racing. He's from Dawsonville, lived in Atlanta his whole life, but of course now he is in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and I was fortunate enough to be asked a guest of his family when he was inducted to the NASCAR Hall of Fame. And Raymond was 96 years old when he passed away. He was the last living member from the original Streamline Hotel meeting at Daytona in 1947. And when you're 96 years old, I wouldn't say that you were, I wish I could have known him, much, much earlier. When maybe his memory is a little bit better or something like that. But still, even as a kid, I knew that I was standing in greatness when I shook hands with Mr. Raymond. And, I respect him a lot more after he passed, and that doesn't sound proper of me. But I learned more about him after he passed. I knew who he was before when I met him, when, I had very, very brief conversations with him. But obviously, when you're 96 years old, no one is as sharp as a tack at 96 years old. But after he passed, that's when my attention really turned to this man was a giant. He was an icon. And I had the great pleasure of meeting him several times and knowing people in his circle and his family, and getting to honor him later in my life, and posthumously, obviously, for him. But I would say that's probably one of them, at least as far as like NASCAR goes.
Okay, question popped in my ADHD mind while you're talking. This year's Daytona 500, Chase Elliott, Michael McDowell, yellow light comes out.
Yeah.
Chase is there.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm not crazy for saying NASCAR stole that one from Chase just so they could say we didn't give him the championship and a Daytona 500.
I'm totally laying out on this one.
It was a shame. I think that was just the wrong place at the wrong time. And I say that because, best I can remember going back in my mind now, it was like yellow flag, or green, and then like it went yellow, and then he just barely went ahead. Like, if it would have been a fraction of a second, you would have had, Chase ahead. And so it was unfortunate. I do think that he was completely – it's just one of those things. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. At least he finished second. I think if it would have went green, he probably would have won. I don't think that it was NASCAR trying to manipulate it, in my opinion. Because if I was NASCAR, I want to do everything I can to get if we were manipulating races, I'd want the most popular driver, most recent champion, whatever, to be clear ahead.
The Dale Jr. conspiracy. Yeah.
Thank you, because I wanted to say for all those people who for years and years said, whether it goes back to the 2001 July race at Daytona or races further, they manipulated the race so Junior could win. No.
Or he was about to go a lap down and NASCAR threw a debris caution. Debris on the track.
Yeah.
Take the bag, empty the contents, consume the bag. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Since our third member, Corey, is actually here now watching, I did ask him if he had a question and he did not. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up my personal stuff for Cody by asking the Dumb and Dumber question here.
Oh, this better not suck.
The Dumb and Dumber question of even if you say there's 0% chance, I'm going to say to you, so you're saying there's a chance.
Oh, God.
What is the percentage that Chase Elliott will see any of this?
I don't know. I mean, he's I'd say honestly pretty slick because he doesn't use Facebook anymore. Used to, he had a Facebook, back in the day.
Well, we're on YouTube. We are on YouTube.
Well, we'll see.
He's watching Kiss videos. He's not watching us. He's watching Kiss videos.
But I'm just saying, Cody knows him personally. Could he mention, Mike and Jordan? We're out here.
You are asking a lot, bro.
2,000 members strong.
I haven't seen him in a while. It's been a couple months since I've seen him, probably. But
I was thinking you'd be hanging out with him at the Atlanta race yesterday. I was going to ask you how that went.
I had the opportunity to go. Somebody was going to give me an infield pass and ticket and all that. I just didn't have the opportunity. Work just couldn't take off, unfortunately. But I mean, honestly, I had just as much fun watching on TV at the pool room anyway. So, but yeah, I just didn't get the chance to go. But I'm hoping to go to Nashville this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to get up there or not, but I'm hoping I can get up there for this SRX race.
Nice.
Final question. Who wins, Bill or Chase?
Chase would definitely finish ahead of Bill. I don't know if he'd win the whole race. He's got experience at Nashville Fairgrounds. He won the All-American 400 in 2013.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's got some experience. I'm looking forward to it. I was wanting to go before he even signed up for SRX because I was told for a while that NASCAR didn't want him to run the SRX race. I don't know why. But
yet there's Haley Deegan and others going and doing it just as well.
Yeah, but she's not a cup driver, though. She's not a cup driver.
Not yet. All right, Corey now decides he wants to be a part of the show. Why don't we give Corey the last question? Thoughts on Atlanta being reconfigured?
That's a
great question. I wanted to ask you that, and I forgot. So
that's a good one because I was surprised. I'm not surprised at why they're doing it. I'm surprised at how they're doing it because, and I started saying this about 2015. That was the first year they moved the Cup race back to February, the dead of winter. Week after Daytona. I said in 2015. They had the track agreement for 5 years. So 2020, track agreement would be up, change the schedule, all that. I said, at the end of that thing in 2020, Atlanta will lose its state. I said, there's no way that they're going to be able to keep the track, keep the fans. It's an old track. I hate to say it, but it's just gonna be dormant. And I'm glad I was wrong. Because I was shocked when I saw last year that they were adding another race, taking it from Kentucky, giving it to Atlanta. I was kind of shocked they didn't make it a night race for some reason because, the lights are there. Why did they not run it at night? I don't know.
I'm glad you bring that up because I'm noticing on the schedule this year, there's no night races anymore.
There's not a lot of night races.
Yeah, very few.
Now we got the Martinsville switch. but our
Yeah.
regular
I noticed that a while back. Like if you remember like 2005, 2006, you had like almost half the schedule was night races, and that's
Yeah.
fine. I like night races because I'm
Yeah.
guaranteed that I'm going to get to watch them. And I'm
Amen.
not working anything like that, especially in the summertime. Why not? In Atlanta, you got the lights. When they ran Kentucky, it was a night race. I don't know why they didn't this time, but the configuration for Atlanta, Georgia's been trying to get, or Atlanta's been trying to get a casino built at the racetrack for a number of years. There's no casinos in Georgia. AMS want to be the first on the grounds of the racetrack, and they've been working on it for a long time. And every rendering I saw had in the background old oval Atlanta from like early 90s, mid 90s, before they reconfigured it in 97, which, if you listen to fans, that's what they want to go back to. If we can take California Speedway from a 2-mile oval to a half-mile short track, why can't we take Atlanta, get rid of the D, and make it back in old style, the old Atlanta International layout that we had until 97? And so with all the casino nonsense, and I saw in the background it had that oval, I thought, surely I knew they were going to do something. I didn't know exactly how they're going to do it. I was surprised when they announced they weren't going back to an oval. I guess they're keeping the D shape. As far as what they're doing, I'm not sure that I totally agree with it, because obviously this new car, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about the car yet. I mean, it's supposed to be the next best thing, the best thing since sliced bread. But we don't know a lot about it yet. It's supposed to be good. We haven't seen like proven results yet. Now the thing with Atlanta, you're making it narrower.
But it's no different than the lanes at Daytona, which, as they bring it in, what they're saying is it's the same width as Daytona, and the additional banking is going to, in my opinion, and again, I'm not an engineer, I'm just a guy who loves fast racing. It's going to make it faster. Atlanta is already, with it, not a super speedway, but Atlanta and Michigan are two of the fastest racetracks on the circuit. Right. If you make Atlanta faster, holy Moses, it's going to be fun.
Well, I'm just afraid that there's going to be some bad wrecks coming. The thing that crossed my mind when they said they want to group cars together more, pack racing on a track like that, the thing that stuck out to my mind was Dan Welt, Las Vegas in 2011. That was pack racing. That was very tight. Of course, you're talking about two totally different cars. You're talking about a pickup truck and a Miata or something like that. You know, two totally different things. But when you look at, I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be a super, super fast track. You're probably going to break the record. It depends on the horsepower package as well. I'm looking forward to it. I'm open to change, but I just don't know how it's going to go.
I'm going to pause you right there, because our very own Corey is coming in to ask.
Oh my God! Look, he's here.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hi, Cody. Normally Corey has the same hair as Cody, so it's going to be hard to tell apart.
Oh, really?
Are you kidding me? My hair's kind of like this almost. It's not.
I know. I'm
not
busting.
That great as Cody's, though.
I'm busting your chops.
He's got a good hairstyle, though.
I'm going to do this for the sake of argument. I do have to lay out. I got to go. I got a long day tomorrow, picking up the kid from the airport. Cody, thank you so much from me.
Thank you.
I'll be reaching out at some point, but I do have to leave. Corey and Mike, have a great time. This was fun for me. I'm going to rewatch this again. I'm out. I got to go. I love you guys.
Peace.
All
Yankee stock.
So I actually have a question for Cody. So I know with the Atlanta being reconfigured next year, and I kind of thought about it, and I said to myself, you know what? I am kind of interested, but I really want to know what the racing is going to be. But actually, my question is, do you think it's possible we could maybe see, Atlanta, the championship race again?
I would love to. I think that would be such a cool thing. And to me, it all goes back to where and what town.
Yeah.
Atlanta doesn't have a lot to offer as far as if you win the championship, what are you going to do? You're going to go out and party.
Right.
Atlanta doesn't have a lot to offer. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Now, one would think Phoenix would be just the opposite. I loved Homestead as the finale. I miss Homestead as the finale. I thought that was great because it reminded me of old Atlanta.
Right.
Homestead reminded me of Atlanta from just old Atlanta International, early Atlanta Motor Speedway. That's what I really enjoy about Homestead. It was kind of a driver's track.
Okay.
Phoenix, I never was a fan of in general. I mean, they're going back again. I am a fan of moving it around. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
As far as going to Atlanta, I think it all depends on the first couple of races there in 2022, whether it's going to provide some good racing. I'm a Georgia guy. Atlanta's my home track. Atlanta's not the most exciting track right now. I think
Right.
when it was fresh pavement for about the first 10 years, it was a great track, great racing. I think that also had to do with the car.
Right.
That era of car. Right now, I don't know. I mean, I was pretty impressed with what we saw yesterday towards the end as far as close racing. But to me, Atlanta in the last 10 to 15 years, it's been so drawn out, and it has not been an
Right.
exciting racetrack. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this provides some really good not even close racing, but just good racing. I don't care
Right.
if you got first and second, and then 5 seconds behind is third and fourth, and then 5 seconds behind them is fifth and sixth. If
Okay.
they're racing, I don't care how far away they are. If they're good quality racing instead of just spread out.
Right.
And everyone's stuck. Like everyone
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
second place was just stuck. And
Well,
couldn't
and
cross
and
them.
that's been the theme of the mile and a halfs the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. It's whoever has the clean air, they're the ones that's probably going to win the race.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There may be decent racing in the back, but you cannot touch whoever has that clean air. I mean, you look at, I call it the Truex effect. I mean, you look at that happens to Truex, and Larson happens to
Right.
everybody that is good a mile and a half. Once they get out in the lead, you can't touch them. You can't catch them. You don't even know they're on the same track.
Right.
So, Corey, I'm glad you got to come on and meet Cody. It was nice to bring you in there.
Yeah.
Cody, it's been an absolute pleasure and highlight of my very short podcast career. The end of our podcast, we like to give you we take this chance to plug or sponsor or put out, shout out. So, Cody, I'm going to give you honors as our guest. If you have anyone you'd like to plug or
Sure.
anything.
Well, I'm just going to plug the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. That's obviously what I've been talking about a lot. I am I do all the social media for the Hall of Fame. So if you ever see a post from the Hall of Fame that's from me, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy sharing the history, kind of like what I was doing today, just to give a little a glimmer of how it relates back to modern day. But follow the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. I don't really do Twitter. We've got one. I don't really use it. I need to start using it again. But on Facebook and Instagram, Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, or Georgia Racing Hoff, HOF. But do that if you want to. If you don't, that's fine too. But as far as like my personal stuff, I don't really use my personal Instagram these days. I just don't have time for that. And Facebook's about the only thing I do personally.
Right.
Awesome. So I always plug the Till Valhalla project. They're a clothing merchandise online, but all the profits go to making these beautiful plaques for soldiers who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for the country, and they give those plaques to the family, and they also support the 22 a day movement of soldiers taking their life of suicide. And I went and got a couple of the shirts. I cannot stop buying these shirts. It's like my new, like, people buy online shoes, I guess, but I just can't stop getting these awesome shirts with the flag and their logo here on the arm. And they're reasonably priced for about $15, plus shipping. And they have all different ones, and each shirt stands for something different. So they're on Facebook, and that's who I plug. Cody, again, awesome, mind-blowing. Love the stories. I am going to be asking you, hey, do you got something to talk about? Are you ready to come back on? We can't
Sure.
wait to have you back.
I'm sure I can think up something I did talk about today, or if not, then something might happen in the future. But thank you for having me on, and I appreciate it. And just holler at me next time you need something.
Facebook, NASCAR Daily, and the Speedway Review. Thank you all. God bless. Stay safe. Have a great night. Cody, say hi to Chase for me, man.
Sure.
Have a
Thank you,
great
Cody.
night. Thank you.